Hey there, I hope you are having a great day. If you like the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and comment down below and subscribe for more videos. Sadie's mother was tall and narrow, with a long braid down her back, black when Sadie was very little, then silvery, then silver, an instrument to measure time, an atomic clock. Her father had been tall, too, both he and the mother the tallest members of short families. In photographs and at reunions, they loomed. Everyone was happy when they had a short child. They decided to fit in after all. Sadie was small and plump and blonde, and when she was 9, her father died, and it was just the mismatched mother and daughter, a different kind of sight gag. Years later, Sadie brought home Jack to meet her mother, Linda Brody, who still lived in the greenhouse on a hill in Swampscott, with its view of the ocean and its cyclone fence. Windy on that hill. All his life Jack had felt like an interloper. He might as well, he decided, interlope on purpose. The doorbell was a little button with an orange light so you could see it in the dark. It was daylight. Sadie pushed it. "You can't go in?" Jack asked. "It's her house," said Sadie. She opened the storm door and her mother opened the front door, a minuet, and mother and daughter met on the threshold. They hugged each other so long Jack wondered whether he should leave. Finally, they disentangled, Linda in her apple red cowl neck sweater, Sadie in her cherry red winter coat. Linda offered Jack her hand and said, "Linda." But she wouldn't look him in the eye. "She's basically a hermit," Sadie had told him, and Jack imagined a lady lighthouse keeper. A kind of nun. Not a nun, since Linda was Jewish, but a woman of the book, devoted to reading. She was a high school librarian. She'd gone back to school for it once widowed. Here she was, with her cheekbones and her hair in its braid, her little house bound up in aluminum cladding the pale green of an after-dinner mint. "Come in," she said, "before the wind takes you." She strong-armed the storm door open so that Jack and Sadie could step inside, but she seemed unable to look at him. In his life he'd been ignored, but in ways that had made him feel invisible. The way Linda Brody looked away from him, he felt blindingly bright, gargantuan. He took himself to the window and watched Sadie's mother unbutton Sadie's down coat, take it off shoulder by shoulder, elbow by elbow, wrist by tender wrist. Down the hall was Sadie's childhood bedroom, and Jack understood that he wouldn't see it this visit, might never see it, it would be shut to him forever. "Let me look at you," Sadie's mother said to Sadie, and set her hands on Sadie's hips and frowned. "Okay, Mom." "It's a lovely house," Jack offered interlopingly, though it wasn't. There was a general disorder to the room, books on every table, Venetian blinds at odd angles to window frames. The furniture looked as though it had been bought all at once from a catalog. There was not a piece of art on the walls. Jack gestured at the window. "Look at that view." Truthfully, the view was only good in that you could see a pennant of ocean in the right upper corner. The rest was taken up with hedges, the across-the-street house, television aerials, telephone wires. "It's nice," Linda agreed. "You need a new coat, Sadie. Let's go shopping. You can pick one out." "I'll buy you a coat," said Jack. "We'll go to Lord & Taylor's," said Linda. Her father's death had bound her to her mother. How could Jack not have known this? Everything that Sadie had told Jack about Linda, her height, her seriousness, her occasional unkindness, the way she fussed over Sadie's weight, couldn't carry a tune but sang, couldn't remember the name of any of Sadie's friends, none of it had prepared him for this truth. Sadie's mother loved her unnervingly. Not in a way that meant she'd love him, too. The opposite. Their love was a piece of furniture designed for two people only. Their love was an institution that barred men. Their love was love, provable and testable, solid, documented in any number of ways. What Jack and Sadie had was something different, built quickly, a lean-to, like all young love. He'd imagined he'd walk into Linda's life through Sadie's door. That was how it had worked in his family. Sadie belonged to him. She arrived with him as luggage, to be understood only as a part of his life. He saw that this wouldn't work with Linda. He would have to come around the other side and talk his way in. He left the window and sat in a leatherette armchair seemingly made of the skins of Gideon Bibles. It sighed under his weight. "Oh," he said. "Jordan almonds." He reached over and took a handful from the bowl on the glass coffee table, and Linda lunged and slapped his forearm, really slapped it, and said, in the voice of a shocked dog owner, "No." She was instantly contrite. "I just always get those for Sadie," she said miserably. "She loves them. They're harder to find than they used to be." It had hurt. She'd meant it. He looked at Linda, then at Sadie, and understood that they were all going to pretend this hadn't happened. He had the almonds in his fist, which he opened. The pastel coating had started to transfer to his palm. "Of course," he said. "You have them." That was the start of their lives together. It went on for years. A mistake, to go to the house. Linda wasn't a hermit. Hers was the sort of shyness that dissolved in a crowd. What she hated was to be seen in her own habitat, among her own things, the nest she'd built around her. Soon after that meeting, she finally sold the house in Swampscott and rented a room from a colleague at the high school. Then she moved to Nahant. Then, once retired, to an apartment in Melrose, and finally to a studio in a converted elementary school in Waltham. Jack was invited to none of these places. Perhaps she was trying to throw him off her trail. He couldn't even remember whose idea it had been, that disastrous first visit. Had he said, "Why don't you bring me home to meet your mother?" Had Sadie said, "Sure, no big deal, we'll just go to the house? We'll go to the place where my father died, and you'll meet my mother, and we'll all be happy." Ever after Jack worked on winning Linda over. Mostly he succeeded. He needed a role for those times. He was not her child. What was more grotesque than that American trampling of boundaries, calling your in-laws mom and dad? "I haven't lost a daughter, I've gained a son," that whiff of incest and separation at birth? Nor was he a replacement husband, a tinkerer, an offered elbow at the opera. "Aren't I lucky to have two such beautiful dates?" That was just as disgusting. He wasn't a friend, though he grew to love Linda Brody decorously, a business relationship, a fond one, a banker or butler. A trusted member of staff. He was never invited to her home. Of the three of them, only Sadie worked year-round, as an editor for a numismatic magazine. Her father had been a coin collector, a biographical detail that had landed her the job. After grad school, Jack had lucked into a visiting position at Boston University, then a permanent one. Summers he accompanied Linda to games at Fenway. For her sake, he'd affected an interest in baseball, which eventually became genuine, he would have thought lifelong, but then the Red Sox broke his heart by becoming successful, not once but over and over. He learned the secret of Linda, perhaps of all in-laws, which was to fold his own personality in half, and quarters, and eighths, then tuck it into his pocket. He allowed himself to be lectured, he offered himself up as the brunt of jokes. The widow Brody. Baseball, museums, movies, but Sadie was what they had in common, though they did not speak of her. They both respected her privacy. Sadie'd been so little when her father died, an only child. A freak accident, she told Jack once. Did she want to talk about it? She did not. He thought he'd be the sort of person in a marriage, they weren't married yet, to whom anything might be told. That was true of the small stuff, the nutshell jealousies, the unusual rashes on inner thighs, the basest functions of the body and the psyche. Not the big things. She had one picture of her father looking toweringly tall, a sort of diamond-shaped monolith, wider at the beltline than anywhere else. He smiled, showed off his bad teeth. Sometimes Jack thought that if only he could solve the riddle of Timothy Brody he could go forward in life. They'd get married, have a kid, they were waiting for a sign. As though they would follow a sign. As though they'd be able to read it. If you liked the video, a thumbs up would be immensely appreciated. Subscribe and tap the bell icon to get the notification whenever I post a new video. If you have any thoughts or recommendations, just leave a comment down below. Hope you have a great day.